Hi, I'm Mike Ridgway, and today we're going to do a tutorial on how to segment transcripts to create captions for YouTube videos. So what you're looking at right now on the screen is a notepad file. It's a .smp file for a video that's just quite short. It's just over 1 minute. And what you see in this video is text that appears in 1 and 2 line segments. On top of that text is a timestamp that corresponds to a time in the video when that text appears. As soon as the new timestamp is reached, the new text appears. So we call these text segments subcaptions. And so in order to create a file like this, you have to first create a transcript. Once you create the transcript, then you have to break it up into these bytes so that they fit nicely on the computer screen, 1 to 2 lines typically. Then you have to timestamp them. Once you have all of that, you can convert this using software into the file that you need to upload to YouTube so that when anybody goes to look at that video, they can turn on the captions and see exactly the words that you have created here at exactly the times that you have specified. So in order to get this going, we're going to launch Chrome. And this is actually the editor where I was working. We're going to do this from scratch, however. So let's just go ahead and close this. And that'll take us back to the video. So we'll just start it here. It's a TEDx talk. It literally runs 1 minute and 12 seconds. So the first thing we would do in order to turn this into a transcript is take advantage of the automatic captions which appear once the person starts speaking.
Over the past 2 years, youth unemployment has been on the rise. It currently represents just under 40% of all unemployment in Australia. Young graduates are leaving university and finding it more and more difficult.
So YouTube, in other words Google, has transcribed this using software for us. But we need to make some improvements, like this letter U shouldn't be capital, and there should be periods, and there should be capital words at the beginning of sentences, commas, etc. So we're going to turn the automatic captions into a transcript, and the way we do that is to copy the video to the clipboard, the URL, and I did that by right-clicking and then left-clicking copy video URL. Then we go to my website, DIYcaptions.com. Once there, we click into the blue box, press Ctrl V or paste, click on the select.
Over the past 2 years,
You can stop the playback, then click on Open Video in Transcription Pad. That's going to take us here. We're going to delete this to start over. Then we'll go back, and to get the automatic captions from the same page, we would click Select Action, download captions via Captions Grabber. Click, Control A, right click copy. Control A does select all, by the way. And then go back to YouTube Transcription Pad, right click paste. Now we're underway. Now I'm not going to go through the keystrokes that I'm using to make this happen. That's covered in other videos. But we will go ahead and just clean it up really quickly. So here we go.
Over the past 2 years, youth unemployment has been on the rise. It currently represents just under 40% of all unemployment in Australia. Young graduates are leaving university and finding it more and more difficult to enter any form of creative industry. Now, the common stipulation is that you can't get a job without experience, but you can't get a job to get the experience. Now, meanwhile, 42% of small businesses failed in 2003 to 2007, and the figures haven't improved much. Amongst many reasons this is happening is a consistent lack of quality in their branding, marketing, websites and designs. The kind of training that these graduates have just spent 3 to 6 years training for. Now, what if there was an enterprise that bridged these two sets of frightening statistics? I want to build that bridge.
Okay, so as you can see, we just created, without pausing, a transcript for a 1 minute and 13-second video, and we did it in about 1 minute and 13 seconds. So now we have sentences, and I put a blank line in between each of the sentences to make it easier for us to have a running start for our segmenting. Now what we're going to do is try to get all of those lines to fit within basically the width from here to here. This is 42 characters of sort of a middle width kind of character, the lowercase o. And I use a Chrome extension to make this even easier. It's called WebPaint. WebPaint lets you draw rectangles, circles, etc. on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and clear this so you can see how I did that. So this is the button to erase everything. And this is the button to draw a rectangle. This is the button to choose your color. This sets your transparency. We like it to be 100%. We don't need the size to be terribly wide, though, for the border. So the width of the border we're going to keep down to about 10%. So with all of that set up like that, then we would just take the mouse down to here and put it right after the letter 2, or the character 2, and then draw a rectangle like that, and that gives us what I call a cutting guide. So that's the rectangle that now gives kind of a good indicator of where we should be clipping this to make sure that everything fits within there so that it fits nicely on the screen here. So we'll go ahead and go back to a regular mouse pointer. It's really important to do this before you leave here, otherwise you'll be stuck in this that doesn't let you do anything other than draw rectangles. So click the arrow icon, and then this dismisses the control panel. And now we're back ready to do the segmenting. Now we're going to assume that everything in here is correct, so we're not going to be playing the video as we do this. And I'm just going to show you the keystrokes that make this possible. The first keystroke that you would want to learn to create subcaptions is the keystroke that inserts blank lines. So if all of this were just one big blob of text, and I was sitting here and I pressed the Alt-Shift-Enter key, in one keystroke it inserts the blank line. Typically you would have to do, well, what I would have to do if I weren't using that keystroke in an ordinary editor is I would want to remove the space, then put a line break, and then put a second line break. So that's 3 keystrokes. Instead of 3 keystrokes, we're doing 1. So from here, 1 keystroke, line break. You'll see that if you go there, there's no space. If you go here, there's no space. So it trims all the spaces from around the sentence, or the sentences, and now we have a line break. I'm sorry, we have a blank line. So my definition of a subcaption is text in between blank lines. So this would be subcaption 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but because they go too wide, we're going to make more subcaptions out of these subcaptions. So the next keystroke you want to learn is the Shift-Enter keystroke. Now, what Shift-Enter is going to do that's kind of like Shift-Enter in other programs, say if you're typing in Facebook Messenger, for instance, or other programs, Shift-Enter will let you put a line break in ways that don't necessarily send your message in Messenger, it just puts the line break. But in this instance, what it does is it puts a line break and it also removes the space, just like Alt-Shift-Enter does. So, but the cool thing about Shift-Enter in this program is that the presumption is that you're only going to have 1 line break per subcaption. So if you move to a different place and decide you want to break it in a different location, as soon as you press Shift-Enter, not only does it put a line break where your cursor was, but it also removes the other line break in the subcaption. So if you had, for some reason, if you had 3 line breaks in this passage here, and then you were to just go and put it right here, notice it will remove everything except for the line break just before the word youth. Now the Shift-Enter key has some special functioning if your cursor is at the beginning of the subcaption. So in this instance, the subcaption has a line break. So if you press Shift-Enter, it's going to take out the line breaks. But before I show you that, let me just show you the other thing that it does. If you're sitting in a subcaption with no line breaks and you press Shift-Enter, what it's going to do is it's going to try to find something along the lines of the mathematical center of that sentence so that we can get quickly to a place where we can start to try to balance those 2 lines that we're going to break apart from each other. So as soon as I press Shift Enter, it's going to take me to here. And I look at that and I'm kind of thinking, okay, if I wanted it to just be balanced and wasn't thinking about anything else, I would just go ahead and press Shift Enter again. And then I would have that, and that's pretty well balanced. The word unemployment is long, so it's not going to be easy to perfectly balance this particular phrase or sentence. However, one of the other considerations that we take into account when we're doing segmenting is we want to keep adjectives together with nouns if we can. We want to keep qualifiers for verbs like is together, or auxiliary verbs and their verbs that they follow. We want to keep those together. To be, we would want to keep that together. A dog, we would want to keep a and dog together. So we're going to try to keep youth unemployment together, and to do that we'll just press Shift Enter here. And now we've got a rather unbalanced situation, so we can kind of compare that to maybe trying to put it here. And we're just going to go with one of these two. And as you can see, it's not that aesthetic, but it is kind of syntactical from a word reading standpoint. And that's really what we're trying to focus on more than anything. So we're going to keep youth unemployment together. And I'm just going to go ahead and run with the comma as another indicator as to where we could break. And I'm just going to do it like that. And eventually, when it gets displayed in the actual video, it's going to be centered something like this, which isn't too terribly bad. So just understand that everything is eventually going to be centered. And so apparent gaps like this are really only about half as bad as you think they are when you look at this. So that's a segmented subcaption. Now it's ready to be synchronized or timestamped. We just have to do that with the rest of these. So let's just go through and quickly do that. Shift Enter. I'm going to just under 40%. I like all of that being together as one phrase up on the same line. We'll leave that. Shift Enter. Young graduates leaving university and finding it more difficult. All right, now see what this one's so long, as you can see, it's pretty much double the width, that we can actually create 2 full subcaptions out of this chunk here. But what I've pretty much decided on this one and working with it earlier is that I probably want to just do a 3-line situation. And 3 lines would be basically 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. So let's go ahead and put a blank line here. Young graduates, and the thing that we can actually discover when we listen to this video is that he actually kind of says the word are, and it would be more grammatical to use that word are. We could try to jump to that location. Let's see if we can listen to that.
Graduates leaving university and finding it
All right, so let's take a
under 40% of all unemployment in Australia. Young graduates leaving university.
If you heard, this is sort of Australian for the word are, if I may so state. So we've typed that in there, even though you can just about not hear it. Young graduates are leaving university, and so that's one subcaption, and we could break it like this. So there we have 2 lines, nicely balanced. And finding it more and more difficult, so Shift Enter, and that takes us almost to a perfect break point. We've got the word to with the word enter, those we want to keep together. And we'll just press Shift Enter, and we now have another subcaption. So let's continue. Now the common stipulation is that you can't get a job without experience, so we'll go ahead and split here with a line, with a blank line. Alt Shift Enter. Alt Up takes us back to the previous subcaption, the beginning of the previous subcaption. Now the common stipulation is that Shift Enter. You can't get a job without experience, but you can't get a job to get the experience. So we'll press Shift Enter and see where it takes us. I like that as well. I'm sorry for my noisy neighbors, but we're just going to plod on here because I really need to get this to you guys so you can learn how to do this. Now, meanwhile, 42% of small businesses failed in 20. All right, so we're going to go to the comma and put in a blank line. Alt Up, Shift Enter. We don't want small and businesses separated if we can help it. So we're going to try it here, and then we'll try it here, and decide which of the 2 we like the best. And I'm going to go with small businesses being on this line and the verb part being on this line. So we'll consider that one to be done. And the figures haven't improved much. Shift Enter takes us right here. The noun's here. Whoops. The noun is here, the figures, and the verb is here. Okay. Continuing. Amongst many reasons this is happening is consistent lack of quality in their branding. Let's try this. Now this one is a long one, so we're going to just kind of break it up in a bunch of places. This looks like a good breakpoint here. Let's do shift enter here. That looks okay. We want the adjective there to precede branding, so that looks pretty good. Among many reasons this is happening, we could split that, 3 words and 3 words. And we just kind of succeeded in sort of tripping into a good balanced set of 3 subcaptions there. Kind of quickly, we've just got basically 1 to go. Now, if there was an enterprise that bridged these 2 sets of frightening, what if there was, question mark, I want to build that bridge. That's 6 words wrong. But because to and build are sort of right on the 3rd and 4th word, we wouldn't want to split those 2. And if we do anything else, it looks really kind of unbalanced. So we're just going to leave this one as one long line. And now we have segmented this video, and it's ready for synchronization. And in the next video, I'll show you how to do synchronization, or more specifically, time stamping of this video. Here's a teaser. It's just that easy. Okay, thanks for listening.